I'm live. Yay. I'm using this new thing on the YouTube thing. I'm assuming my microphone and stuff's working. I'm using this new feature, something to do with camera or some shit that you live stream with, and I've not done it before, so who knows if it's going to work or not. Anyway, I wanted to do a live stream. One of my favorite YouTubers by the name of Rick Beato does these kinds of things where he just kind of goes live and plays stuff and sort of talks about, you know, different musical concepts and things like that. So I wanted to kind of do that. And I'm gonna talk about like jazz music. Hey Gig, how you doing, brother? Can you hear me all right? Can you tell me? It looks kind of, you know, bad quality, but can you hear me? Yeah, nah, maybe. Okay, cool. So I'm going to talk about the tune "Have You Met Mr. Jones." Normal viewers of my videos may not be, you know, used to this kind of thing, but I'm kind of wanted to do more kind of music-y stuff on my channel. So this will be an instruction on how to play "Have You Met Mr. Jones" and various things you can do with it, because it's it's a standard jazz tune. It's got pretty standard changes. The bridge gets a little bit tricky, but it's got pretty standard changes, and it's good to practice over because it's got some very, like I say, very standard changes that you should be used to if you're playing jazz music. So I'll go through the changes and then talk about some different scale and lick ideas and things like that. Hey Timmy boy, so it's in the key of F major. So the first chord is a F major 7 chord, the next chord being a B flat 7th chord, which is kind of like a secondary dominant, I suppose. But really what it's doing is leading on to the next chord, which is A minor. So it goes F major, B flat 7, A minor 7, D7, G minor 7, C7, back to A minor 7, D7, G minor 7, F. And so functionally, C and then F. So functionally we're going 1, 4, 6, 3, 6, 2, 5, 6, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1, which is a very standard way of doing a chord progression in jazz music, going around the cycle of fourths. So we go, like I say, F, B flat, that B flat. Again, like I say, it's functionally kind of working as a chord that leads to the A minor, and the melody fits with it quite well as well. D7. So it's that B flat could be also an E7. So you could be going F major 7, E7, which leads nicely to the A minor 7 as well. I'm not going to go into too much why it does that, but that's kind of what it is. So you're going F, B flat. What are you doing, Chai? Throw the dogs. What is that? Attacking some sort of beetle. Anyway, and so the melody over that is starting on the third of the chord, and an A goes down to a D and a C, which is the third of that A minor chord, and then the 7th of the D7, and then it goes to D on the G minor, which is the 5, and it goes up to the F major scale, up from the D up to a C, and then it goes up to that high D, which is the I suppose the 11 of the A minor, down to a G, and it kind of does the same thing. At the beginning you've got this, and then you're up here, D, G, F, G, F, which is kind of like the flat, the sharp 9 of the D7 chord, which is acting as an altered chord to lead to the G minor chord. So that D7, which is kind of what you'd call a secondary dominant chord, because it's containing notes that aren't inside the F major scale. It's got this F sharp, but that D is acting as a 5 chord to the G minor. So you can hear that leading on. You can hear that kind of voice leading that you've got there. So you get this nice. Who's the song by? Song by is, I believe it's by Rodgers and Hart. I'm gonna say, yeah, it's a jazz standard from back in the day. Have you met Miss Jones? I'll tell you. Written, but no, it's not written by Robbie Williams, you fool. Richard and Rodgers. Sorry, what am I talking about? Richard and Rodgers, who were a writing duo. A lot of jazz standards. Richard Rodgers. Sorry, they're not a writing duo. It's one guy. What am I talking about? So it shows how much I know about jazz. One of the things. A lot of jazz standards came from. Hey, Rugged. A lot of jazz standards came from film scores. Like composers would compose music for films or Broadway plays, Broadway shows and stuff like that. Yeah, classic jazz artist Robbie Williams. And then jazzers would come along and take those tunes and put them into like a combo setting. And when I say combo, I mean like drums, bass, piano, and saxophone or something like that. And so this is one of the tunes that kind of got taken out of that Broadway / musical context and into a jazz combo kind of setting. So like you'd probably find an original of it which would have all these strings and it would be all big and Broadway and things like that. But the more jazzified versions would be with like I say with jazz combos and things like that. I believe Sinatra sang it originally. One of the people that kind of took it. That's another thing is you'd have these guys like Sinatra. My brain's not working. Sammy Davis Jr., the Rat Pack, those guys like that who would also take those and kind of put them into a jazz context. Still very much kind of Broadway, but more towards a jazz kind of thing. And then you'd get guys like Coltrane or Miles or Chet Baker or Dexter Gordon and things who would then take them and play them as jazz tunes. Anyway, back to the melody. So we've got up to that D, to the D up the top, and that F, and so that's kind of. I like that. It's kind of interesting. It's going from the 11 of the A minor down to the 7. So there's a couple of different ways you can talk about how the melody relates to other things functionally. You can talk about it in relation to the key itself. So in this case, we're going D is the 6 of F. So it's going 6, 2, 1, 2. In the key of F, but you can also talk about it in relation to the chords that you're actually playing. So in this case, it's the 11 of the A minor, down to the 7 of the A minor, down to the 6th of the A minor, and then to the the sharp 9 of the D7. So that root, that F chord, which is the root of the key, which would normally be home like that, is transformed into this alteration on the D7 chord, which sounds fantastic and leads quite nicely to that G minor. And then the melody repeats. Sorry. So that's kind of how it works over the A section. Now let's talk about the chords and the functionality of them and kind of some scales and stuff you can use. One of the defining scales of the jazz genre, I suppose, would be the bebop scale, and it's quite it's very helpful. It's a really, really helpful tool to help outline chord changes, because what it does is it takes a normal, let's say, bebop scale in the sense of a major scale, right? Oh, sorry. normally you have 7 notes in a major scale, yeah? So we take C major, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. And you've got those 7 notes, right? And if you play them across a 4/4 bar, what ends up happening is the notes kind of shift because there's 7 notes, and you're landing on the upbeat of the last bar, the last beat of the bar, and then you end up with the alternate notes landing on the beat. So it would be like this, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So in the second bar, you end up playing all the kind of the wrong notes of the chord, right? So like if you're playing that C major over a C major chord, when you're in the first bar, the notes that land on the beat are the C, D, G, B, and that's where it stops. So that's the 1, the 3, the 5, and the 7 land on the beat, and then, like I say, it flips around, and it ends up being D on the beat, F on the beat, A on the beat, and then back to C again. And so you end up having the 9, the 4, and the 13 over top of that C major chord, which is fine, but it doesn't really help to outline the sound of the chord. If we're playing a C major chord, we really want to outline that sound by having the chord tones landing on the strong beat. And the way that we do that is we add in an extra note into the scale to line the chord tones up with the beat. And so what ends up happening is you put in a sharp 5 into that scale, and it ends up sounding like this. So the chord tones land on the beats, and then when you continue playing through that, it lines up nicely, and you get the sound of that chord really outlined in the thing. So so the notes that end up landing on the beat with this extra note added are as follows: C, E, which is the 3rd, G, which is the 5. Now you've got this extra sharp 5 note, and then the 6 lands on the beat, and then we're back to the root again. And so we end up landing on the beat, on the root, on the chord tone, and that's a good thing. So we can use that scale to really outline the sounds of the chord. And so when we get like right at the beginning of the tune, we're in F major, so we have an F major chord. So we can play that bebop scale in the key of F to really outline that sound. And it's a good scale to practice, because what ends up happening if you play it from various different chord tones, you still end up with those chord tones landing on the beat. So you can play the scale from the root, you can play it from the 3rd, you can play it from the 5th, and then you can play it from the 6th as well. So you end up, like I say, end up with the chord tones landing on the beat, and then you can also play it going like descending. So you want to practice the scale ascending and descending. So and then and it fits really well into this kind of setting. And so so now we've got one scale for one chord. Now there's a couple of other ones you kind of want to do. What are you chewing on, Jai? She's such a dog. Anyway, okay. So the next one that you'd want to use is the dominant 7 bebop scale. So that was a bebop scale for a major 7 chord. Now, the bebop scale for the dominant 7th chord is a Mixolydian scale with an added major 7 in it. So a Mixolydian scale is, you can think about a Mixolydian scale from 2 different angles, I suppose. One is that it's the 5th mode of a major scale. And by mode, I mean you take a scale and you play it from a different degree, and it gives you a different scale. So, for example, we have C major. I go back to C major again. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's just our C major or C Ionian scale. Now, if we play that from the 2nd note, which is D, started from D, we now have a different scale. It's got a different sound. Oh, sorry. It's called D Dorian. Yep. and it's a minor sound. So we get that minor sound. Next would be E Phrygian. So it's kind of a sussy flat 9 kind of sound. Kind of that kind of thing. The next one is F Lydian, which is a very kind of happy sharp 11. Sorry. That kind of sound. Well, not really, yeah. So it's got a sharp 11. Now the one I wanted, like I said, is a Mixolydian scale. So this is going to be G Mixolydian. If we start a C major scale from the 5th, and it gives us basically a major scale with a flattened 7th. Now this was the one that Rick Beato was actually just talking about in his video, and this is the reason I started doing this, is because he was talking about Mixolydian scales, and then I was like, oh, I'll do a thing too. And so anyway, Mixolydian scale, C major starting from a G. G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Where normally a G major scale would be G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, G. This is G, A, B, C, D, E, F natural, and it gives us that G dominant 7 sound, which is the 5 chord, which resolves back to the 1, which is kind of the foundation of a lot of jazz music. 5, 1, 5, 1, 5, 5, 1. And so in this case, we're in the key of F major, and so the 5 chord is going to be C7, and the Mixolydian scale is going to be C7, C Mixolydian, which luckily for us is exactly the same as an F major scale. So that's what I mean. You can look at it from 2 different angles. One, you can look at it as a C major scale with a flattened 7th, or you can think about it as an F major scale starting from the C. So there's 2 different ways you can think about that Mixolydian scale. I can't remember how I think about it. I just kind of know now because I've been doing it so much. But anyway, so this is C Mixolydian, F major starting from C, or a C major scale with a flattened 7. And like I said, it fits over that that C7 chord nicely. Now, again, the problem we have is when we get to here, C, D, E, F, G, A, B flat, C, D, F, A, C. So we get these notes landing on the beat which aren't chord tones, and that's not what we want. We want the chord tones landing on the beats, so it outlines the chord nicely, and we sound like we know what we're talking about, or we know what we're playing, or something like that. So that's the function of the bebop scale. So we add back in the major 7 to this scale, and it gives it lines up the chord tones nicely. It sounds like this. Yeah, so we get on the beat, we get C, E, G, C, E, G, B flat, C, E, G, B flat, all landing nicely on the beat, outlining the chord, which is good. That's what we want. We don't want to not outline the chord, because one of the important things about soloing in a jazz sense is outlining chord changes, is making your lines and your melodies and things sound within the chord changes. That's one thing that's kind of important to do when you're outlining chords, because you can do that all you like, but it's not going to sound like, if you took away the backing, the band or whatever, it's going to sound like you're not playing, you don't know the song very well, or that you don't really know what you're doing. So and it's not going to kind of sound right. So if you can outline the changes using these scales, it's going to sound better and good. It's kind of a tricky concept to wrap your head around. But anyway, outlining changes, important. So, okay, so we've got these 2 scales. And again, you want to be able to play that Mixolydian bebop scale, the dominant bebop scale, up and down from the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th. Yeah. So from all those places, so that when you are playing through a tune, and you know, because what's going to happen is you're not always going to be in the place where you can all, you know, you're not always going to be in a place on your instrument that you can just play it from the root and that you can go up. That's you're going to be, if that's all you can do, if all you can do is play the bebop scale from the root going up, you're going to get to some places in the tune where you go, oh crap, I'm not in the right place, and it's not going to flow nicely, right? So for example, in this tune, you're going to get to a place. So let's say we're starting on F, and then we get to, so the bebop scale. Sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. That bebop scale as well can be played over both the G minor and the C7. That's a fun little tip for you. If you come across a 2-5-1 in a jazz tune, which you're gonna come across a lot, you can play that bebop scale, and it's gonna fit across that turnaround. It's gonna fit across there. It's gonna fit across that whole thing. Okay, so we get to the G minor, and we start playing our bebop scale. And now we're getting to we get to the so we started on the root of the G bebop, or you know, so I'm playing G minor bebop scale technically now, but they're the same thing because I just said so. Just take my word for it. So you get to your G minor, you play G, A, B flat, B, C, D, E, F. Try. Damn dog, shut up. Just barks at everything, anything that moves. And now we end up on this G, which is the 5 of that C major. Oh, sorry, that C7. And oh no, we don't know how to play that bebop scale from a G, so we kind of fall over and get lost. But if we are there, we can, you can chuck that nice little thing in there. Okay, cool. So those are two scales that are kind of good to get down. Now the next one is one of my favorite scales. I sound like such a proper nerd. One of my favorite scales. I learned this one from John Coltrane. I was transcribing a Coltrane. What was it called? I can't remember what the tune was. I was transcribing his solo on a tune, and he happened to play the scale, and I thought it was fantastic. And then I noticed it in other things that he did and whatnot. And so basically, what it is a bebop scale. But thank you. I'm glad I've also got Adventure Time tattoos. It's basically, yeah, it's a I don't really know how to describe it. It's a bebop scale, a dominant 7 bebop scale, but it also contains the flat 9, the sharp 5. That's better. So it goes like this. It starts. What it is it's like a harmonic minor scale, but with the bebopiness in there, right? So that's what it sounds like. So it's like so in this case, if we're talking about D7, so like I said before, we've got this D7 chord which leads quite nicely to a G minor, right? And so that, like I said, that D7 is leading to that G minor, and appropriately we can play a scale which does that same thing in our lines, right? So we can play a scale that creates these tensions that then lead on to that G minor, and that's kind of what the scale does. You can hear that really leading through, right? Okay, so this is what the scale is. It starts on on a D, so it starts on D, and like I say, you could just think about it as a G minor, a G harmonic minor scale, but with an added note in there. So, but starting from the D as well. So it's D, E flat. So that's the flat 9 of the D. F sharp, G, A, B flat, C, and here's the bebop note thing. C sharp, D. So we've got that chromatic line there. So D, C sharp, C, B flat, A, G, F sharp, E flat, D. And just like with the other bebop scales, it lines up those chord tones with the beat and really outlines the chord. So you get this D, F, A, C, D, which outlines that D7 chord. And really leads the line to that to the G minor, which is really what we kind of want in your playing. Yeah. So okay, so we've got 3 scales, which are really handy to go over these various different chords throughout the song. So, like I said, the first chord, F major. For the sake of simplicity, we can just ignore the B flat for now. So we get A minor, D7, which we can play that whole that D. I'm going to call it an altered bebop scale. I think it's probably got a name, and that's probably what it is. But for now, I'm just going to call it D altered bebop. So you can play that over that whole bit. G minor. C, and so that's going to be our C7 bebop scale. Just give me 1 second. I'm going to let the dog out. Chai. Whoa, Jesus. Go on. I know you want to bark, but just go outside. Go. Get out. Damn it. Okay. So so F major bebop scale, which is F major but with an added sharp 5. A minor to D7. Like I say, it's a 2/5. That's basically what's happening there is a 2/5 into the G minor, right? So it's A being the 2 of G, D7 being the 5 of G into G minor. And you can so for that 2/5, you can play that D altered bebop scale, right? Over that whole section. Now we get to the G minor, where again you can play the C bebop scale. Back to F. Okay, so let me try and demonstrate. Something like that, yeah. I had some other things in there, a couple of arpeggios and things, but could you hear the outlining of the chord changes through the lines that I was creating? Hopefully you can, because that's kind of the goal. I'm no master by any stretch of the imagination, but that's kind of the goal, and that's something that I've been trying to work on of late. So so that's the A section. So the tune's broken up into 2 sections. You got an A section, which is that twice. And then you've got a B section, which is a slightly different form of beast. So it's kind of the B section does what kind of normally happens in a lot of tunes, is it modulates to the 4 of the key. So we're in the key of F, and as it gets up to where the B section is, it starts. God, there's dogs barking everywhere. I'm perpetually being trolled by animals all the damn time. So yeah, it does what kind of is pretty standard in a jazz tune, and indeed a lot of tunes as well, is it modulates to the 4 of the key. So we're in the key of F, so it modulates to the 4, which is F, G, A, B flat. So it modulates to B flat. And the way that it does that is it creates a turnaround, a cadence, 2/5 turnaround, C minor, F7 to B flat. So that's one of the things that happens a lot in jazz music, and I'll show you in this B section as well. Is what happens is the composers will lead you on to new keys and to new chords by preceding those chords with a what's the word? With a turnaround like that. There's a better word. What am I can't think of the word at the moment. But anyway, so they'll precede the chord that they're aiming for with a 2/5/1 kind of turnaround. So instead of just playing, it's not really a segue either. No, it's so instead of playing, like for example, the chord progression could just be F to B flat. But instead of just going F to B flat, we could go F, C minor, F7 to B flat. And you can hear, if you listen, you can hear the chords leading you on to that B flat. You can hear where it wants to go. So it being F major, C minor 7, F7. You can hear where it wants to go. Da, da, da. Yeah. So that's something that happens in jazz music a lot, and indeed happens in this tune. Like I said at the beginning, there's this B flat 7 chord, which does that very thing, leads on to that A minor 7 chord, which is some pretty cool composing there. So like I say, what happens here is we get towards the end of the A section, and to lead into the B section, to lead to that change of key, the B flat to the key of B flat, we get a 2/5 turnaround, C minor, F7, B flat. Okay, so now we're in the key of B flat major. It's kind of a backdoor progression. Is like it would be like F major. I think that's how it goes. It does like a tone below, and then up to, or like a. I think that's a backdoor progression. I can't remember exactly how it goes, but that's. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Oh, it does it in Yeah, no. So this is a backdoor progression. A backdoor progression is when it goes. It plays like the 4. It's the 4, the flat 7, and then the 1. So you go. So in this case, it'd be which is kind of an extension of a common musical technique called a minor plagal cadence. And I talk about this in one of my videos I did about a Vox video where they talked about this Christmassy chord. Anyway, a plagal minor cadence is where you play the 4 chord as a minor chord and it leads back to the 1. So you get something like this. You hear that leading there. Okay, and so what a backdoor progression does is it adds a 2 in front of that as well. So instead of just going F minor to C, it goes what was it doing in this case? It would be B flat. Yeah. So it would go. Sorry, it adds in the 5 as well. So it would go F minor, B flat 7, C. And you can hear that kind of works as well. So normally F minor to B flat would lead on to E flat major 7. That's a 2/5 into E flat, because F is the 2, E flat F, and B flat is the 5. Yeah, it's kind of like the Amen at the end of hymns, but not what that is just a normal plagal cadence. It's F, like there will be F major to C. So it's the 4. Amen. But this is like it's a little darker, and I think it leads a lot better. It creates a bit more of a tension, which leads to that. And like I say, the backdoor progression adds in that B flat as well. And the reason I could remember that is because it happens in the song Just Friends, which starts on the 4, goes to C minor, F7, and goes to G, so it goes C minor, F7, G. Beside the point. Back to Heavy Miss Jones. Okay, so it plays, you get this 2-5 that leads you into the key of B flat. So it goes C minor, F7, B flat. So at the end of, listen to how it sounds at the end of the A section. So it's okay, so that's how it kind of works. Yeah, so instead of going back to the 1, it goes to a 2-5 into the key of B flat. Man, it took me a long time to say it modulates into B flat. But anyway, so and then for the rest of the B section, it does this great thing, which has been coined the Coltrane matrix. And the reason it's called the Coltrane matrix is because John Coltrane was kind of the one who popularized the idea. And it's this idea of chords moving in intervals of major thirds. So normally we kind of, in a lot of jazz tunes, the chords will move in either fourths or fifths, right? So we'll get like, it's going doom, 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 doom. That's all moving in around a cycle of fourths. So we go C to F to B flat to E flat to A flat to D flat to G flat to B. That's a common way that the chord progressions work, and did work a long time before Coltrane came along and was like, you know what? Screw that shit. I'm going to do it in major thirds. And so he did. And he wrote the song called Giant Steps, which goes B, D7, G, B flat, E flat. And so the chords that are moving in major thirds we're going from B major to G major, which is down a major third, and then to E flat major, which is down another major third. So those are the 3 main chords: B major, G major, and E flat major. So that's moving in a cycle of major thirds. And if you start again, if you go in major thirds, you can go, I'll start up high. So it goes B, down a major third to G, down a major third to E flat, down a major third to B again, down a major third to G, down a major third to E flat. So it just keeps going cyclically like that. So you get those 3 chords, and it makes up like an augmented chord, right? Which is an interesting sound. And what John Coltrane did was that he made, like I say, he made the song called Giant Steps. I can't do the melody. That's Giant Steps, and like I said, the chords go in this major third cycle. And what he just does is he precedes those chords, like I said, precedes those chords with 5 chords that lead you there. So it could just be B, B, G, E flat, G, B, E flat. I think that's what it is. So it could just be that, but instead of doing that, he chucks the he puts a 5 chord in front of each of those, so it leads the ear onto those new chords, right? So it actually goes like this, right? B, D7, G major, B flat, which is the 5 of E flat, and then he does a 2-5 into G, A minor, D7, G, B flat 7, E flat, F sharp 7, B flat major, B major, and then F minor, B flat, E flat, A minor, D, G, C sharp, F sharp, B, F, B flat, E flat. And so it continually kind of rolls around. It's a notoriously difficult tune to play because it's not intuitive at all because of the, and this is what happens in the bridge of Have You Met Miss Jones. It starts on B flat, and then it goes down a major third to G flat, and precedes that with a 2-5, with a 2-5 thing. So we have this. We start the B section by going C minor, F7, B flat, and then we move down a major third to G flat, but we precede it with a 2-5 of that G flat, which is A flat minor, D flat 7, G flat, and then we go down a major third again to D, and we precede that with a 2-5, E flat, A7, D, and then it kind of then it jumps back up to the G flat, A minor, D7, A minor, D flat, sorry, A flat minor, D flat 7, G flat. So for the first 3 chords, it goes down a major third, and then it jumps back up to G flat, and then we go back to the A section. Guess how we do that? By putting in a 2-5, which modulates us back to F7. It's a fantastic chord progression. I really like it. It's kind of complex and kind of advanced stuff, but when you can start to wrap your head around it, it's fantastic. It's really, really cool songwriting. And the melody goes like this, right? So we've gone, so it goes to a C, which is the 9 of B flat major, 9 of that B flat major. So C, B flat, F, G, and then it goes to A flat, which is the root of the A flat minor chord, and the 5 of the D flat 7 chord, and then the 9 of the G flat, which is really cool. So it's kind of doing the same thing each time, but every time it's changing through the different keys, right? So it's the same kind of melody. So it does the same kind of steps. It's going down a tone, down to down a 1, 2, 3, 4, down a fourth, and then going up a tone, up a semitone, and then it does the same thing. Down a tone, down a fourth, up a tone, up a semitone again to the E. And I'd be really interested to know whether how that was written, because you could come from either direction. You know, it could be just that melody. You have that melody. You could have that melody and then go, oh, what chords am I going to use? And then the melody kind of leads you to this kind of odd major third chord progression thing, or you could start with the major third chord thing and then just kind of add the melody on top. Who knows? The guy was obviously some sort of genius. Anyway, so we got again the root of the E minor chord, the 5 of the A7 chord, and then the 9 of the D chord, and then we kind of go up an arpeggio of a D major 7 up to the, or it's the 7th. This is another cool thing. It's the 7th of the D major 7, but instead of staying on the D major 7, it goes to the A flat minor, the A flat minor, D flat 7, and back to G flat. It's such a fantastic melody and chord progression thing. It subverts expectations, which is kind of what you want to do in music as well. You know, you don't want to just be playing the same thing all the time and everyone being like, yeah, it's the same thing. It really kind of keeps you on your toes, especially when you're playing the song. It's true. So I'll play the melody of that tune, that section. So and then that as well. Oh, it's so cool. So you've gone ending on the 3rd of the G flat, which is the B flat, which is the 3rd of that G flat major, and then, like I say, it then modulates back into F major, and the way that it does that is it goes G minor, C7, F, the 2-5, back into that F, and the melody note, which was the 3rd of that G flat chord, is now the minor third of G minor, and the 7 of C major, which then leads back to the beginning melody note, which is the 3rd of F, which is A. Cool. So that's kind of the melody and the chord progression. Now, I just wanted to talk real quick about maybe like some substitution-y things that you can kind of do, which kind of adds some spice up your life, everybody, everywhere. So there are two common ways in which chords move in jazz music. I talked about this before. They go in like fourths, right? Hey there, Jan. Thanks for thanks for joining. So there are a couple ways, and in this tune, you'll see they go in patterns of either fourths or fifths, right? So this F goes down a fifth to B flat, and then we kind of just go down a semitone to A, and then it goes in patterns of fourth. For A, up a fourth to D, up a fourth or down a fifth. That's the thing, is you can, if you're going up a fourth, it's the same as going down a fifth, and if you're going down a fifth, it's the same as going up a fourth. So we're going A, up a fourth to D, down a fifth to G, up a fourth to C, and then again back to the A, and up a fourth to D, down a fifth to G, up a fourth to C, and then down a fifth again to F back at the beginning, right? So that's one way that you can your kind of bass movement / chord progression can kind of go in. Okay, so and that works. It sounds good. The chords kind of move and they flow onto each other. And I mean, there are other things that you can do in that sense that kind of create the tension that moves chord from one to the other. But the bass movement definitely does that as well. But there's this thing that you can do called tritone substitution, which is kind of a big, scary sounding name, but it's actually a pretty simple concept, and it's something that's used in jazz music quite a lot. And it's to take a chord that is a tritone away from the chord you're on and substitute it in. So instead of playing a C dominant 7, you play a chord which is a tritone away from that, which is G flat. So C, a tritone away from C is G flat, and it instead. It creates a movement of fourths and fifths. So instead of going down a fifth to F from C, you're instead going down a semitone, which is also another very strong bass movement, going semitones. So instead of this, instead of that, you get this, right? Yeah, you get this nice sound, which is kind of cool, right? And so you can do that. The first place you'd start with that is any 5 chords that are leading to another chord. So in this sense, the D7 and the C7 can both be substituted for their tritone companions, and I suppose, and you get like a chromatic movement instead of that fourth or fifth movement thing. So in that last turnaround, the A minor to D to G to C to F, you can instead go A minor, A flat 7, G minor, G flat 7, F, and so you get this descending chromatic bass line. So you can do that in your chords, but you can also put that in your lines when you're playing. It happens at the end of ornithology. It's quite a cool little line to learn. What's happening there is the chord progression is the same as in Heavy Memphis Jones, but in the key of G rather than the key of. Let's look at it in F because then it's relevant to what we're talking about. So what's happening there is you're going up and down arpeggios, but playing the tritone substitutions of the 5 chords, right? So you go starting on an A minor, starting on A, C, E, kind of slide into the A. So you're going up to E, back down to C. So A, C, E, C, and then you're going down. Yes, he would definitely say, "Why am I such an?" I love music theory, man. I love jazz. I love music theory. I love all this sort of stuff because it's really interesting, nitty gritty stuff that it just fascinates me. It's very mathematical and logical, and I like it a lot. Anyway, so yeah, you're going. So basically, you're going A minor, A flat major, G minor, G flat major, down to F, and you can hear how that kind of resolves. Yeah, using that kind of chromatic movement rather than, like I said, fifths or fourths, right? So we go up an A minor arpeggio, and then down an A flat arpeggio, and then up a G minor arpeggio, and then down a G flat major arpeggio, and end on F. And so and that's a line that Charlie Parker wrote, right? For ornithology. And so I kind of use that line quite a lot. Like, so you could use that in Have You Met Miss Jones, right? So let's think about that. kind of friggin' hand it in there, but you get the idea. You can put that over that that change. And the reason it works is because of that tritone substitution thing. So you can do that into your lines as well, and it doesn't have to be like that. You could kind of do anything. I would maybe like a that would be another example of it. So you're going A minor, A flat, G minor, G flat 7 to F, and you can hear how that kind of works, right? Sorry. Oh shit. You can hear how those arpeggios kind of lead you through there, right? So that's a cool thing to do. Tritone substitution. Yeah, you'll notice it a lot the more you listen to kind of jazz dudes and stuff. So that's a good thing to put in and to think about. So the reason why you may be asking, you may be thinking to yourself, well, why does it work, Michael? That's really weird. They're two completely different chords. Chai, shut up! Jesus, dog. If you look at a C dominant 7 chord, you get the notes C. Sorry, you get the note C, and he plays a G. C, E, G, B flat. That's a C dominant 7 chord, right? Now, the two most important notes in a chord are the third and the seventh. They're the two notes that define what the chord are. The third defines whether it's major or minor, and the seventh defines what kind of seventh chord it is, what the flavor of seventh it is. So you can play those two notes, and it can give you the whole sound of that chord. And in a jazz setting, generally you're going to have a bass player who's playing the root of the chord, so you don't need to worry about that. So you don't, you could play a whole jazz tune with just the third and the seventh. So I'm just playing the thirds and sevenths of those chords, right? And if you outline those in your lines as well, it's going to really, that's another thing that helps to outline those chords. So if you chuck those two concepts together of bebop scale and thirds and sevenths, you're on to win it. Anyway, point being that in a C7 chord, C, E, G, B flat, you if you then now, okay, so the chords being the notes being C, E, G, B flat. Now, the notes of a G flat 7 chord. Let's take a look. We've got a G, we've got a B flat, we've got a D flat, and we've got an E. Some of those notes are the same. I wonder what that would be. Okay, so the relationship between the tritone chords. The relationship between those chords is that they have the same thirds and sevenths, except they're flipped around. So the third of C dominant 7 is E flat. Now that is the 7th of G flat 7. Now the B flat, which is the 7th of C7, is the 3rd of G flat 7. So those two notes, those two really, the most important notes of those chords, the one that defines them, are the same in both those chords. The other two notes are just flavor notes, right? So and see what happens if instead of playing a C7 when a C has been played, so you're going to get that sound. Instead, you play a G flat 7. Sorry. You get that tension, right? So the two other notes that are in that chord, the D flat and the G flat, create tensions that help to lead the chord on. In this case, the flat 5 and the flat 9. So it gives you a C7 flat 9, flat 5, flat 9 sound. And you still have the 3rd and the 7th. That's why it works, if that makes any sense. So they've got that connection. Those two have that foundational connection of the 3rd and the 7th, which are the same. And then the other notes around those notes, those other are just kind of flavor tones that create tensions that move the chord forward to the next chord. And you'll find that in you'll find just in tunes, people will flat out just write the tritone chord rather than the 5 chord. I can't think of any off the top of my head. Instead of the 5. Well, actually, I like in the beginning of Have You Met Miss Jones. This is what I said right back at the beginning of this video. I talked about the B flat 7 chord, which comes straight after the F major. F major 7, B flat 7, A minor. So that B flat 7 is the chord that leads on to the A minor 7. And the reason it does that, if we look at what the tritone of, when I say tritone, I mean that's an abbreviation of tritone substitution. So the tritone substitution of B flat is E7. They have the same 3rds and 7s. So the 3rd of the 3rd of B flat 7 is D, and the 7th of B flat 7 is A flat. Now the 3rd of E7 is G sharp, which is the same as A flat, the same note, and D natural, which is the 7th. So they have that connection, right? They're the same. They're the same core chord. And E7 is the 5 of A minor, and that's a chord that's going to lead onto that A minor chord. So when you come to playing that B flat 7, you can choose. You can choose to play a B flat 7, or you can choose to play an E7, whichever is going to lead you to that A minor. And that again can be reflected in your lines. You can. So you can play a B flat 7 chord there, like I say, or an E7 chord. So you could that would be an example of a using an E7 sound there. You could or you can, like I say, you can use B flat 7. So there's a lot of possibilities. I know there's a lot of possibilities and a lot of stuff to think about. But these are some of the things that you can start to kind of think about when you're playing through a jazz tune like this. And I think that Have You Met Miss Jones is a fantastic vehicle for doing that. One of the things that you can do, there are a couple of ways that you can practice this stuff. You can sit down and just practice the scales and then play over the tune, using something like Band in the Box or I use a lot of backing tracks online. You can practice like that. That's one thing that you can do to practice. Another would be to transcribe other people's solos over this tune and try and pick out those techniques inside their solos, and go, okay, that you isolate them and be like, okay, so that here he's using a bebop scale and here he's using a tritone substitution and da-da-da-da-da. That's a good thing to do as well. And then what you can do is you can write your own, like methodically sit down and write a solo over a tune like this. So take the A section, get out your pen and paper and write methodically a solo using these techniques, and then learn it and so I mean that's kind of like transcribing it, I suppose. But you, like I say, and that's kind of the goal of improvisation, is to be able to do that, but on the fly. So if you can think about it to begin with and write it all out and have it be done like that, that's going to be some steps towards actually doing it on the fly, right? So that would be a couple of ways. Obviously, you need to get the scales under your fingers as well. So sit down with the metronome and go. You want to be able to play it over like the entirety of your instrument too. Like I can't. That sort of business, so that you don't kind of have any gaps in your playing. You don't get to a place on your instrument and go, oh shit, I don't know that. But so learning the scale up and down the instrument like that is good as well. So yeah, but doing it with a metronome, and yeah, there's a lot of stuff. I hope that anyone watching this was able to take something away. I'm going to do some more of these because it helps me as well. I enjoy kind of talking about this stuff because it helps me kind of solidify this nonsense in my head. So yeah, that's Have You Met Miss Jones. I'm going to play it just for a little bit so you can kind of hear what it sounds like, and I'll try and outline some of those techniques. I'm just going to get a backing track right up on here, and thanks for joining in. Thanks for listening to me ramble about bloody music theory. It's fun. Have You Met Miss Jones? Backing track. I'll see you guys soon. Here it is. You bastard. Start halfway through. Have You Met Miss Jones? Yeah. Oh, I forgot a thing. before you go. Another important thing about these scales, and the thing is, so it's great to learn the scales like this, but what's also really important is to be able to hear the scales, hear the sounds that you're playing, because when you're playing, you don't want to be thinking about this stuff. You want it to be kind of the ideas in your head coming out through your instrument, and so you need to kind of get the sound of the scales in your head. And there's a couple of ways that you can do that. A couple of ways that I do is, one, just to sing along with it. So oh, sorry. So sing along like that. The other would be to play a root note and actually sing the scale yourself. So oh crap, sorry, I got lost. Actually sing it, and so you hear each of the notes against. So that wasn't the bebop scale; that was just a major scale. But you hear each of the notes against that root sound. So what it actually sounds like, and do it with a chord as well. Do that. So you're actually cementing the sound of the scale in your head. And the other way would be to sing the root yourself. And play the scale over your singing of it, and that's a good way to do it as well. And that works with like intervals and things like that. I like to do like play a note and then try and sing an interval above it and things like that. Just ear training stuff is good. Anyway, that's all I need to say. Make sure that you get the sounds of the scales in your head as well. Anyway, Have You Met Miss Jones? Hope you enjoy it. That's enough of that. Hey, thanks for joining in. That was me, jazz wanking. So it was good fun. I hope you learned something from that. I hope I played something that I actually tried to talk about, and I'll do more of these in future. So peace out, love.